Hi everyone, welcome to Web Wednesday. I'm not Christopher. My name is Aisha Good, and I'll be the host of Web Wednesdays from now on. And this is my guest, Ada. Welcome, Ada.
Hi.
Oh, I'm giving her a hug because it's been a long time since we were able to do this. 2 years actually. And Ada is coming from London to San Francisco, where we are streaming from.
Yeah.
Ada, can you tell us about yourself, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a developer advocate for the web browser Samsung Internet. Samsung Internet's an Android web browser. It's really good. If you're a web developer, you should definitely test your websites in Samsung Internet because we're the third biggest mobile browser. We have significant usage, like bigger than you'd think. So definitely check it out. That you can get on the Play Store. I'm also co-chair of the W3C Immersive Web Groups along with Aisha. And yeah, so I do a lot of like WebXR stuff because they're the standards that we're working on.
Yes, I'm really excited to have this show, and this being the first show. So we're going to talk about a library that Ada wrote today. But if you have any questions or comments, keep them coming. We'll answer them towards the end of it. Anything else? Hi, Francisca. I know you. She's my boss.
Oh, nice. So yeah. I can't say anything too bad then.
Yeah, don't put me down, please. We're doing a great job at W3C, aren't we?
We are doing a great job, actually. Like we're actually soon going to have, like WebXR has been in browsers for a while, but the actual standard itself is like pretty finished, and we're actually shipping it soon. So we're doing a really good job.
Yes, it's so exciting. It's been in works for 5 years.
Yeah, long time. But soon it'll be a real web standard, which we've taken from nothing to completion.
So let's explain what that even means. Like, why do we need this spec? What does it mean that it's complete now?
All right, so the spec is called WebXR. Well, actually, it's a group of specs under the WebXR banner, and with the goal of interfacing with immersive hardware. So it's a pretty low level API actually. Like it gives you raw access to, not raw access, but it gives you access to the sensors of immersive devices. So for example, like the position and rotation of a VR headset, or if the headset does hand tracking, it gives you access to the hands. It gives you like access to, if you're doing augmented reality, like you're on the HoloLens or on Samsung Internet on Android devices, you can use it to get the positions of points in the real world, and then it will continue tracking them and let you keep hold of that. So that's kind of like the input information it gives you. It gives you like position of 3D objects. You use this to render your WebGL scene. You show some controllers, you render the background, you put in some 3D models, make it look good, rendered from the user's point of view, based upon the information you've just got from the WebXR device API. And you do all this with WebGL or WebGL2 or WebGPU, which is like a little bit down the line. And then you send it to the headset and it will be displayed. And do that at the frame rate of the headset, and well done, you've got VR or AR, whatever you're working on.
Yeah, and so many people are not super familiar with WebXR, and but Metaverse is a word that's been going around, and why web is important, do you think? This is a very deep question. Okay. Sorry to about.
That's a good question. So like, definitely take this with a pinch of salt, because I have bias here. As like, I work for a web browser. I've been a web engineer my whole life, but as far as I'm concerned, if the metaverse isn't based on web technology, it's totally useless garbage. That's the position I will take and stand on. Like, the metaverse needs to be based on open, interoperable standards that are developed by multiple parties working in concert. And nowadays, one of the few platforms where that's actually the case is the web. And the advantage is that the web is already designed for working in sync in a way that's both privacy aware and secure. So like all of the standards for building like a secure, private environment, it's there, it's done. Like the restrictions we have when we implement the APIs and we get feedback from all the other people who have interest in the web space, force us to make WebXR to be an API that's privacy and secure, well, like privacy aware and secure, not just by default, but as the only option. Like you can't unless you start purposefully exfiltrating the user's information, it makes it hard to accidentally risk your users. And that's WebXR needs to have that standard of privacy and security, which you can't do with a native app. Like if you have a native app, you can't trust that it's private and secure, but provided your web browser is up to date, and has had the developers in there checking to make sure that it's secure and it's having pen testing and stuff, you have more of those guarantees by working in the web. And that's why I think it's so important that the metaverse is based on web technologies. I mean, it would in theory be possible to reinvent the wheel in order to make a new metaverse standard, but you're basically going to have to be reinventing a lot of the stuff that the web has been doing well for 30 years.
That's true. All of the access, anything that we are using today, plus the WebXR stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we are so passionate. And that's why you said no raw access. So we are limiting the access of any developer to all of the sensors to protect the privacy. And once we decide on these, that's how all of the browsers implemented. So we can trust the web, but it's we have nothing to compare for Android, iOS, or any of the AR, VR headsets, basically.
Yeah, that's actually one thing that's really nice, because WebXR is built targeting all of these different devices, but it's slightly abstracted, so that you can build in such a way that you can target iPhone, let's say iPhone, but no WebXR on iPhones yet. You can target Androids or handheld phones and AR headsets and do both kinds of AR together at the same time with the same code base. And if you build generic enough, you base stuff on some of the WebXR primitives, when new hardware comes along that maybe hasn't been invented yet or you don't know about, there's a good chance that what you've built with WebXR will continue working, which is really powerful, because often if you want to ship a native app to a new platform, you have to, at the very minimum, recompile it. But usually you have to make lots of adaptations to deal with the the different inputs and controllers and stuff like that. And in WebXR, it is possible, you can build very hyper-focused things that optimize for single platforms, but you can also build targeting everything. And ideally, you would do both. You build a thing that works generically everywhere, but then has really good focus targets it for popular platforms, one that a lot of users might using, so they get a slightly better experience. But if someone's using it on hardware that you've never encountered before, it'll still work. I mean, that's important for the web. When you get a new computer, the web isn't suddenly broken or behind a particular version, or if you switch to a new format of device, you can browse the web on VR headsets. I can see web pages which were made long before everyone had the concept of what we currently know as a VR or AR headset. And it's kind of cool that the stuff people built years ago still works on the modern devices on the web. There's very few software that runs which will run natively on any platform without need for a specialized emulator.
Yeah. And that's the exciting thing about web. And we are so passionate about it, and we can talk forever about it. Web is open and free, and it's really, really important to us. But you are a web crowd. You should already know.
We're definitely preaching to the choir.
Yeah, exactly. So let's show what you had, so people know what we are going to talk about with the handy. We have a tiny video.
Do you want to show the video?
That's right.
So this is just some test code I've been working on. This is like a little playground which I have for playing with like hand interactions. And so I made this. I remember this doesn't actually show off the hands moving as well. We can keep showing it.
Yeah.
Because this stuff's also really cool. But one of the things that's really nice is that it's designed for giving you really tactile hand interactions that make the 3D objects feel like they're solid.
Mm-hmm.
And it does this by attracting the objects towards the hands. Like you notice here, when I go to grab the rungs on the ladder, the controllers themselves grab the rungs, but the actual hand position, which is shown by like the green and red dot,
Mm-hmm.
is actually drifting all over the place. But because of that, like the brain is really bad at knowing where your limbs actually are in 3D space. And so because it's relying on your eyes, it just assumes that where it sees the controller is where your hands actually are.
Yeah.
It works really well.
Yeah. And one of the common misperception of WebXR technology is that this is for games, for VR and such, but there's especially hands have so many use cases when you're training or when you can interact with an interface without touching anything, which is important these days, right?
Yeah, like it's like I think that's definitely like the new like interface type, like the thing which we like there aren't many patterns yet for dealing with like good interfaces for XR. Like there's definitely some, but I wouldn't say there's like a standard pattern for quite a few things. And so the interface stuff I was doing here was largely based upon some of what I experienced when playing Half-Life Alyx.
I don't know what it is.
So Half-Life Alyx is a really cool virtual reality game. It's for PCs, and it's a good game. If you like VR, try it out. Like I was only like 50% playing it for like the Half-Life story and stuff like that. Like I spent a lot of that game picking stuff up and putting it down and like twisting stuff and just picking stuff up and having a go with it. Like one of the things you do a lot in that game is that you often reload your gun, but you don't just push a reload button and it plays an animation. You have to like release the clip, you grab a new one, you put it in. But if you built that naively, that's actually a really difficult task because it's hard to get the hands to actually line up properly. And so what they do is they kind of like fuzzily move your hands towards interactable objects. And if you have to like put a thing in another thing, it will kind of line it up for you automatically, which is actually kind of a tricky thing to do. Because if you get like weird feedback loops, you can get stuff where your hands just like fly away, which is a weird experience. And suddenly your hand just starts like drifting off and going off into the distance.
I know.
So it's kind of tricky, but I thought it was like a really good experience, and people aren't really doing that on the web. And I wanted to make it easy for people to give like that level of interaction where as you go to grab an object, your hand just like sticks to it, because it has the advantage of like when you keep pushing your hand, the visual of your hand stays in the same place. So it actually feels like that when you've grabbed the object, that it's a solid object, which is really nice. And I think it's like it gives a high quality feeling experience.
You're also tricked that you're actually holding something. I mean, it really feels like you're in it, you're holding something, even though there's no weight or anything like that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how it has that effect. And like the brain just kind of smooths over like a lot of the weird gaps. Like if you there are a few things you can do to like kind of break the illusion though. So like if you rotate the visual of the user's hands like more than about like 80 degrees beyond where it actually is, so like when it's like out like this or in a position where you couldn't do with real bones, like then the illusion's a bit broken. Also, if you lock the finger position, so normally like if you like rotate the visual, but the fingers are still moving, the brain still is just like, oh, that's my hand because the fingers are doing the same thing that my hands are doing. So that's like a neat thing you can do to try. So if you basically if you freeze the thing, then your brain is just like, that's not my hand. That's just a statue that looks like a hand.
You might mess up people's brain because I know that for like audio, if you use the headphones all the time, then you lose the sense of things happening and the sound of the things, and that could easily happen with the hands too.
Oh, I didn't know that, but yeah. But yeah, there's a few things you can do, like if you pull someone's hands too far from their original position. But I mean, it's like quite far. Like if you're within 10 to 20 centimeters, users won't notice. But yeah.
And the funny thing with the hand controllers is that sometimes people just put down their hand controller and they have an avatar and their hands stay on a table or something suddenly, and then they walk away.
I've been dealing with that a lot recently because I mean, my current project is involving like lots of avatars, and frequently I'll put down the hands or I'll move the camera but leave the not move the camera with it, and suddenly the arms just like stretch out indefinitely. It's very creepy.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I mean, the stretch. Usually it was detached when I saw it. So what is the new project? What is it that you're working on?
So yeah, after building this hand tracking library which I've been working on, which also does the thing which I didn't show before is that it also does pose tracking, so it can detect. So like as well as showing the user's hands, like if the user does like a pose, then it will like detect what pose and fire events. So if you point, it'll fire a point event, which in my case I've hooked up to like teleporting. But anyway, so after building this, it was really cool, but then I wanted to like experience it with people. Like I want to be able to pick up a baseball and throw it to someone, have them pick up a baseball bat and like, hit it back, or pick up a frisbee and throw it. And like that's like the next step. And so I started working out how to do like 3D avatars based upon 3D models, but like a lot of them like are like the hub style where it's just like you have a detached head and detached hands, and then you kind of just like have to imagine the arms. I don't love that. Like I like having elbows. So I came up with like a cool like analytical function for placing elbows, which I'm very happy with. It works really well.
Oh, that's nice.
And it just based upon the shoulder position and the hand position, it will place an elbow, and then it will join the bones of the 3D model up in between them, which is nice. And then the shoulder position is based upon like the head position. That algorithm is pretty naive. It just wherever the user's pointing, like it looks wherever the user's looking at, it'll just do the same on the shoulders. But yeah, like it works really well. I'm hopefully in the next few days going to put out a video or at least a link to a project people will be able to remix to do like social VR stuff, where they'll be able to like pick up objects and show them to other people. And
that's exciting.
Or at least, if nothing else, like look at each other and wave their hands.
Yeah. Let's show your website link. You can find the Twitter, Ada's Twitter account, and also blog posts. So stay tuned for the updates. And we have a comment here. MSub2. One of the things that's present in a lot of native VR games that I haven't seen in WebXR is auto hand posing, where the fingers of the hand curl to realistically wrap around what you're holding.
Oh, that's pretty easy. Well, no, it's not. I could do a simple one where like I could pre-record a hand pose, and if you're in like a grabby situation, I could just override the hand position to like tween between the actual position and the fake position, so that you, whenever you're grabbing something, your hand goes to a grab position. I don't like that because the thing I mentioned before, that when the hand doesn't behave like your actual hand behaves. Like it kind of breaks the illusion a little bit. That's just like my personal opinion, but it's also my library, and that's why I haven't implemented it. Pull requests are open though. If someone wants to add it as a feature, like you're more than welcome to.
And here's the link on GitHub. So what made you write this library? And what is important? I have lots of questions.
Okay, so the library initially wasn't this huge, like, grand unified solution for hand interactions. Initially, it was I wanted to do hand pose detection in AFrame, and the current hand controllers in AFrame weren't a suitable model for doing that. So I made a generic hand pose tracking library that actually if you go to that link, like the main repo itself is just for the hand pose detection bit of the library. And so what it does, it takes you as a developer upload several positions you wanted to track, like a relaxed position, a fist position, and a point, say. And then it looks at the user's hand position in WebXR using the WebXR Hand Input API. And then it compares the position of each joint to each of the pre-recorded positions, and the one with the smallest difference to one of the poses, that's the pose which is selected to be the main pose. So, for example, if you're pointing, it'll be like, this pose is most similar to the pointing pose you uploaded. Therefore, I'll fire a point event. And that's all it does. But the magic trick is that it's built to be extremely efficient. It doesn't have any library dependencies. It's just built on pure web and WebXR.
That is really cool. So people can include it into any other code base, Three.js, Babylon.js,
exactly,
whatever they're using, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like it basically has like in your frame update loop, you would just update the current information, and then it will send it back and handle it. And it works pretty well. It's pretty efficient, and it runs in a web worker, so it doesn't clog up your main thread, because it's actually pretty expensive. Like there's 20 something joints in the hand, and then it's doing like matrix maths to do the comparison, and then it's that times the number of poses you have. So it's not super cheap.
So I will clarify the number of poses, why it's important. It's almost like a keyword, right? Or like a button click thing. If, when I do this, maybe I want to see the menu or something like that. So it's a keyword for you to attach any events, basically.
Like in the demo I have, I've got it so that if you make a fist, it counts as like, or if you fire the squeeze event on the controller, then it tries to grab. If you make your hand flat or do the squeeze end event, then it releases objects. If you point, it fires a ray out of your finger, and so you can do teleporting with it. So you can point where you want to teleport.
Yeah, I saw you had a water gun. Without the water, you could
you can grab the water gun, and you can pump the water gun by like grabbing the individual bits and moving them, and it works really nicely. I actually had a lot of help with being able to like grab objects with hand tracking from Rick from Oculus.
Awesome.
Because when doing that, I found like a couple of bugs, and he very quickly got them fixed and sent me test builds of the browser to make sure it's still working.
I tested some of them too. It is really exciting to see your work.
But yeah, so that was where it all started. Like it just began out this library, and then I kind of wanted to do. But then I work in AFrame. I wanted to do an AFrame example of it, like an AFrame example implementation, and then it just grew out of control. Like so, I first got I got it rendering hands, and and doing the pose detection. And then I started doing the magnet behavior because I really liked it. But then I wanted to use the magnet behavior with normal controllers too. So I added support for rendering the normal controllers from the... So it takes the controller models from the WebXR input profiles repository, which is it's a GitHub repo that's owned by the Immersive Web Group. So the groups that build WebXR. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Well, this is our whole group thing, but yeah, this is...
Yeah, so if you go to the Immersive Web Group on GitHub, there's a repo in there called WebXR Input Profiles, and it has like models, 3D models you can use, and layouts of all of the controllers you can use with WebXR, all of which have been kindly donated by the various hardware manufacturers for the controllers, so they're accurate models for the operating systems they're on. And yeah, they're really good. But you can, so it uses that information and the controller model to display the controller, but also when you push a button, not just work out like you push button 2 from the array of buttons from the gamepad API, but also work out that was the X button. So it's got events for that. And so when you put it all together, it lets you build good hand interactions because you can hook into controller events or on like if they're using a controller, or hand pose events if they're using hands in a really generic way, which is really nice.
And like my one of my controllers wasn't working for a while, and the default is not going to hands, and it makes it really hard. You can't play most of the games or do anything with one controller, which it's like if you use the hands, that's solved. At least it should be the default, I think. But so one of the very important part of it is the performance, and I know why it's special. So can you tell us, why it's more performance?
So the reason I focused on performance is because like we're really limited. Like the time budgets in WebXR are tiny. So like on the web with request animation frame, you're looking at about usually 60 frames per second. But for XR devices, that can go up to 120 frames per second. So the amount of time you have to render each frame is like 8 milliseconds. And so if you're using up time on that main thread to do things, that's less time to spend on fancy shaders or nice physics engines, or even just throwing around more polygons.
Everything gets slower.
If you start like missing your frame rate budget, like you start getting jank, and WebXR can handle that to a certain bit. Like it gives platforms the ability to handle janky frames in a way that's like developer cause jankiness in a way that's okay. But if you miss like multiple frames, or you're continually missing frames, you're going to give the user like a really bad experience. You're going to make them nauseous. They're just going to have a bad time.
And that's where all of the bias for VR comes from, right? If you tried a bad experience, which is not performant, people get dizzy and they don't want to be in it.
It does really annoy me that like a lot of sometimes people's first experiences with VR are experiences which haven't been like built to be either performant, or they're just like doing various bad practices that make the users ill, so that they come out of VR feeling like nauseous and disorientated.
And I mean, it's part of it is also the device availability, and the technology is changing, because I mean, first smartphones wasn't a good place to use the internet, right? And then the devices of today is so much more powerful, and we could do so much more. Same thing about the VR and AR also.
Like VR and AR is getting more powerful, but like the cap is like the lowest common headset, and the two most commonly used headsets are the Oculus Quest 2 and the Oculus Quest 1. And so I target everything to the Oculus Quest 1 to get the most performance, even though in theory, like someone could run any experience from like a big, powerful gaming computer with like an external headset. So even though things are getting more powerful, you're basically still limited to what you can do on a mobile chipset if you want to reach the largest possible audience.
Yeah. Yeah, and tethered devices are, if you're connected to a PC with a cable, it's really hard to make it useful for a lot of situations too. Yeah.
Although I like the new, so like Oculus is the new thing that lets you like wirelessly tether to your computer, which is, I haven't given it a go yet, but like should help get around some of those like issues. Like if I wanted to play Half-Life Alyx, I wouldn't need to plug in my HTC Vive. I can just stand in my living room and use my Oculus Quest like I would normally, except it's streaming from my computer. But like people don't go through that much effort for a website.
Yeah.
Like if a website is difficult to use, people aren't going to use it. And you need that low barrier for entry for WebXR, especially when it's got to the point when we're having links, like when you can navigate from one WebXR page to another. Yeah, this is actually kind of weird because the first feature, like the feature number one of the web is being able to click a link and go to a new page. Like that's the number one feature.
Yeah, without downloading anything.
Yeah, it's what defines the web. But currently in WebXR, you can't, if you navigate to a new page, you're dropped out of XR. And so it kind of discourages people from building XR experiences that link to one another. But once navigation is in WebXR, because it is something that is being worked on like a lot in the group, like it's of a big interest. So once that is available, then if you go from like a site that's made really well for mobile and you're having a really good time, and then your friend's like, hey, let's go to this next site, and they go through a link and you go through the link. But then like you're just like, okay, this is shit for me. Like I'm on a mobile headset and they're trying to render like clouds in real time using a fancy shader. And you're like, well, this is, every time I look at the sky, I get 2 frames per second.
Yeah. Oh my God. We have so much to talk about. And I wish we have more videos about this too. But also I want to ask people, what kind of headsets are you using? And are you using WebXR? And what do you think about it? Like, do you think that you might be using it in a few years? Do you think this is important? I really wonder what everyone is thinking. I personally think everyone in the future, well, all of the web developers will need to do something like the IKEA apps, where you put your, 3D model in your environment and see before you buy. I think this is going to be very common.
I think like if developers want to get into building with WebXR like today, like it is like the learning curve seems impossible. Like doing stuff for like 3D it's a lifetime learning. Like it's an entirely new skill set to web development. But you don't have to learn 3D modeling and like 3D animation and rigging and like texture painting and all that from the get-go. Like there is some really good sites out there that provide web-ready 3D models. Like one I really like is called Polyhaven. I didn't think we'd be going in this direction, so I didn't prepare a link in advance. But if you Google it, it's called Polyhaven, like Poly, Polyhaven, Haven. It's really good. They have a lot of CC0 assets, 3D models ready to use for VR, with like a kind of photorealistic aesthetic. There's like the Pomandra store, which I can't spell, but it's like Pomandra's Market, it's called, and it has like a bunch of 3D models that are super low poly, very efficient, great to use in the web.
And we'll put the links after the show on the comments.
And there's also like Sketchfab's a really popular one. But anyway, no matter where you get them from, you can get 3D models and you can use them, or you can use primitive shapes like planes and cubes and stuff just to get the experience. If you want to just put a 3D model on your website, so say you are building the IKEA app, like you said, then great. The simplest thing to do is just use the model viewer custom component. It's really handy. It lets you just display a 3D model on a page, and it's already WebXR ready. The users can push a button and then just display it. Is this?
Sorry. So I have all of those resources where you can find
This is so useful.
ready to use, models, all of the different libraries. So we'll add the ones that you mentioned because I know I don't have it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so model viewer, and then if you want to do more interactive stuff, AFrame is a great place to start because it's a HTML wrapper around WebGL elements, and it comes again WebXR ready.
Yeah.
And it lets you build 3D scenes using HTML elements, which is really nice.
It is really nice. I mean, it's a declarative thing where with Three.js, Babylon.js, and some of those libraries, you have to actually understand the 3D space. With AFrame, I feel like you just put down some properties like you would put on any other HTML tag, which is really nice. And there's actually a proposition on our W3C also Model-element.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're interested, if you're passionate about it, do comment on it. Or
So the Model-element's in development by Apple. And it seems really cool. They're working on it within the immersive web, and it's exciting because it's like I think it's gonna be like the first bit of WebXR in the declarative space kind of thing.
It's gonna take some time though. So I think Model Viewer that's open
Model
source.
Viewer is the way to go right now.
Has great documentation too, and it's super easy to use. And few response to my question. I've been using Quest 2 for the past year or so to do WebXR, though soon I'll have a Lynx R1 too. I don't know that. Have you?
Yeah, there's a new headset that's coming out soon. I think it's going to be using Wolvic as its browser.
Awesome. Please do share what you built. We're always excited about, tweeting it here or, on the resources. Also, the resources are open source. If you want to put down your app or whatever you build, that's a great thing to do too. Okay. So one of the main focuses in game dev, it's really exciting to have the ability to create cool immersive experiences that can be accessed straight from the web, especially multiplayer ones. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing, but also there's lots of challenges that we have to solve, right? I mean, performance is one of them, but also the avatars that you were talking about.
So there's avatars is actually a big problem in the web for and it's for me it's a problem that's unsolved because so in the web we have this concept of fingerprinting. Can you uniquely identify a user based upon the information they've given you? And so
and why is that bad? I know.
So that's bad because you shouldn't be able to be uniquely identified to the web. On the web, your browsing should be if not anonymous, it should be pseudonymous.
So people can target you based on your disability or whatever.
Yeah. Or they can look at, if someone can track you around the web, they can build up a profile of you, like Ada likes looking at cats and dogs, LGBT forums and other things that I like. And then they can build up a profile being hey, we on a naive way they would show me adverts based upon that I like cats and dogs, but on the bad side they would deny me insurance because I'm gay.
That is possible. And even where you work, this was one of my very first interview questions when I started as a software engineer. This company was it was a photo app that you wouldn't think, and they asked me, how can we find out where they work?
That's so dark.
I know.
You shouldn't be able to know that.
Exactly. And the sad part is they do. I mean, This was like 8 years ago or something. So
I mean, yeah, like it's a big. Also, like the web is constantly trying to reduce fingerprinting to make it people, and there's an entire huge industry designed to fingerprint people.
So
Yeah,
advertisers can target you.
But the downside right now is that so avatars have to be rendered by the website, which is like displaying the WebXR scene. And so that means you have to tell the website what avatar you want to use. And so if we're using like one of 3 predefined avatars on the website, like it's not an issue. But if you have an option to let users upload their own avatars, or even more likely there'll be an avatar service where you'd go to a website, you would say, use my avatar from this service, and they would provide the avatar. Well, and if you use that same avatar on multiple sites, that's like, not only do they have like dozens of fingerprinting bits, like if it's a 2 megabyte avatar, they now have 2 million fingerprinting bits. Like they can uniquely, like incredibly uniquely identify you. Be like, hey, if this person has using an avatar that matches the same type, you can almost guarantee it's the same person. Which is a terrifying prospect. And I think when the metaverse takes off on the web, which it's starting to, I think we might have to start looking at what way can the platform handle avatars so that the underlying websites don't know what the people using the website look like. Because it's like, if we consider our avatars as an extension of ourselves, like we don't browse the web with our webcams on so that the website can see what we look like. And WebXR sites shouldn't be able to do that as well. And it's not a problem today because not a lot of people are doing this. But yeah, like it could definitely be a big problem in the future.
And we have to think about it before it happens, unlike, how the first round of web developed, right?
Yeah, because we can't like we have this rule of thumb, like we don't break the web. Like we try, unless it's like a security nightmare, like removing standards or changing them once they're like a finished finalized standard. Like that's like taboo in like the web standards world. Like you don't want to do that. We don't break the web, or fork the web. That's so if we build in a way that encourages people to build solutions that are insecure and risky, then by the time we actually get to release this, it'll be too late. Like developers would have already done their thing. Like communal standards would have grown up around what it means to do avatars. Like services and businesses would have grown around the concept of providing avatars. And then if we were to come along with a web standard at that point, developers would go, well, that's very nice, but I'm going to use the thing that I've been using for the past 2 years, because I know it works and I don't have to make any changes.
There's just so much work ahead of us. And, we made some mistakes before, right? Like privacy, and in terms of privacy, especially on mobile phones, I feel like. I hope we don't make that for WebXR. That's
like
the goal.
A lot of standards work these days goes towards making standards more secure. Because there are web standards out there which already are giving away the farm in terms of privacy, and we now having to have the difficult conversations of how do we roll these back when there's entire industries around using them correctly and for good. in spite of the industries which are using the same APIs and the same API calls to uniquely fingerprint users, or intimidate users, or spam them with notifications. Like, it's a difficult situation.
Yeah, there's just so much more information when you are wearing a headset, and it knows your height, it knows, if you are missing a limb, or if there's just so many possibilities. Plus, there's eye tracking in some of the devices, including HoloLens, which makes it even more dangerous in a way, because they know then developers know where you're looking at.
It is really interesting how we solve some of these problems in WebXR. So some of them we solve it by just not providing it out the box. So for example, we don't give people access to what's on the camera, like coming out the camera for the devices. Sorry, I got
to. Meanwhile, don't forget what you were talking about, but just wanted to show. Franziska is very excited. I'm putting you down for WebXR developer, Franziska. In that case, we have a plan. Do you see the possibility of using AFrame with Model Viewer for user interaction?
They're not really interoperable. Like, yes, they're both based around web components, but they're not like built to work with each other. Like, you can build model viewer functionality with AFrame in not a huge amount of code. So if you wanted to have that kind of functionality, but then build additional stuff on top of it, you could use AFrame, and it's not too bad. But if all you want to do is show a 3D model, you can just use Model Viewer.
Yeah, actually, I worked on a Model Viewer for Autodesk, and there's just so much more interaction. Like, you could pull out the models, you can walk through the models and everything else. And you can just, it's a code snippet, you can just add it to your website. If you search for Autodesk 3D Viewer.
This is a great question. So
that one?
Okay. No. Could WebXR hand tracking be used to translate sign language? And unfortunately, the answer is no.
Oh, why? Wait.
So
it is really hard, I know. But is this a possibility? No?
So there's nothing in the API itself preventing it. But the way hand tracking is done today kind of almost entirely breaks when two hands overlap, even in like the slightest way.
Yeah. Because of the camera, you're looking through the camera basically, and if your hands is not in the view, you lose the tracking.
So like any signs, like especially in like British Sign Language, because like every sign when you spell has two finger overlaps, and a lot of the other signs have involve like two hands. Also often like in some signs they're like out of the user's perception.
That's the hard part. Although HoloLens have cameras looking to the side.
So that's a bit better. But also signs that are in like relation to the person's body.
Like chest.
Like there's no, unless you have additional sensors for knowing where the user's torso is, you then start having to make assumptions and stuff like that, and then it kind of starts breaking down. So it's like yes, like it's a very limited amount. I think ASL finger spelling is one-handed. So that I think you could do that. That you could do you could register a pose for each letter, and then you could spell something. But I think a lot of poses. Oh, and also the problem is like a lot of them have motions as well. They're not just like, you don't just hold a pose. You do an action. And recording like gestures, like gestures versus poses is just a whole another level of complexity that is in theory doable, but then like working out that in relation to the other bits of the body and what it means is nigh impossible. So it's like it's like the answer in general is no. For specific use cases, kinda, but not very good.
Yeah,
Um,
but don't be discouraged, Johnny. And if you build it, we'll be very happy. But this is maybe what you could build if somebody is speaking, and we have the transcription turned into sign language.
Yes, that you.
In the avatar.
That's really cool. Yes. I mean, it would be huge. Like, you'd have to record individual animations for like every like word or phrase.
Yeah. Maybe sometimes context might be.
Also, like ASL isn't like a sign-based transliteration of US English. Like, it's its own language.
Something to think about.
Yeah, so you'd basically have to get the whole sentence, translate it into the individual animations to assemble it, and then do it. But then basically the problem is like every 3D model you download would have those animations in, would be many megabytes in size. Because animations are actually surprisingly heavy.
At least for like pre-recording it for a talk, for example, when I'm talking, there could be an avatar who's signing.
That is doable. Because
it's hard to find someone, hire someone to make your video accessible.
Although I wouldn't embed the animation information into the avatar in that situation. Like, I would have it streamed in alongside the video, and then it would animate an avatar. Holy shit, this is a really good idea.
And it's almost like mouth pose, right? So we have few syllables and such, a few shapes, and then we transform between. That might be, I don't know. I don't know sign language well.
You have to basically get the sentences, translate them into the individual animations, and then you have to send them down in real time to the thing, and then to display it. And annoyingly, the better solution would, because like machine translations aren't always amazing, especially with languages with as few, like there's not a lot of training data for sign language, like voice transcription to sign language. I don't, as a 3D model, like I don't think that data set even exists.
Mouth exists, for example, so that could come one day too, hopefully.
But yeah, you could definitely, like, the ideal situation would be having someone signing live on the stage. Unfortunately, if they were to put their hands together to do a sign, it would break. And so what you'd have to train someone to do the signs with their hands slightly offset, and then so that they don't ever overlap and can still track well, and then undo the offset in the thing. But
well, if we have the resources, we don't right now, but theoretically you could also have a camera looking at that person, and then their Hand.js, I think, is a library using TensorFlow.
Okay, that would be a better solution. Like, well, like that same technique is what's being used in the headset anyway. But there are various like hardware accessories you can use to track the positions of fingers.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So, also, there's that.
So you could use something like that, and then and then you would like load it in via like a different web API, because it wouldn't come through WebXR. Unless, well, I guess a browser could support that through WebXR, and like if it's present, use it too. Anyway,
we are going down to the rabbit hole, but Johnny, please keep us posted what you think, and I'll we'll continue this conversation, because there's just so many accessibility features with WebXR, and this is not just the sign language. And you said so text to sign would work. You can make it work with TensorFlow somehow, but it will take time. Currently, what's easy is even like rock, paper, scissors,
Yeah, but that you can do.
yeah,
Rock, paper,
exactly.
scissors is doable. That I should do a rock, paper, because I have this. I call this flat, and I have fist, which is rock. So I just need to add a scissors pose, and then we can do a rock, paper, scissors game.
Exactly, and you're done. And I used to do AR show, and Seth Juarez is still doing every Friday 11 p.m. Pacific time, and he's building rock, paper, scissors from scratch with machine learning. He's just doing it, but he doesn't know WebXR hand tracking is a thing.
Yeah, like that would save people a lot of time.
Exactly.
Like you would need to have some kind of XR hardware equipped, like a Quest, like a headset or something. Actually, I get asked that a lot.
Even
like
the camera though.
Okay, but you can't use that with WebEx. Okay, you could use like the TensorFlow to do it, but like it would be nice if there was an implementation for hand tracking for like Chrome on laptops via the camera. So if you're in an immersive session, you could at least like share your hand position.
I know 2 people that could bring this up. So we have 4 minutes. So John, you asked for the open source. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but let us know in the comments. We'll talk. Put down the open source project. Did a new WebXR thing just get invented live? Yes, Keith, and you know it, and you can feel free to go ahead, build this thing, and make a lot of money.
I was talking about something before I answered that question. I can't remember what it was.
So sorry. Yeah, it's my fault.
No, I totally forgot. I got really into that question because it's a really good question.
We were talking about your Handy.js.
Oh no, it was the stuff we do in WebXR to prevent people's
privacy.
Yeah. So for example, we make it hard to work out how tall someone is by like fuzzing the height information a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can't like perfectly calculate someone's height.
That's really nice.
Like some of the information gets like a little bit fuzzed. Some of it like for example, even though for many systems the underlying hardware has a 3D mesh of what the scene is, when you're trying to place a 3D object using the hit test API, we don't give you the 3D model of the environment. We only give you a single point from an origin you request, which basically means you can place an object on the floor or the walls, like the 99.9% of what people want to do, but you couldn't 3D scan the environment.
And I can't stress this enough. That's not the case if it's not web. We have 0 guarantees that's not the case if it's not web, right? So when you're looking around, your headset device can scan everything and can know everything in your room.
Like a native app could be like, hey, we've given you an app that lets you put funny hats on your friends.
Exactly.
But what it's actually doing is scanning the faces of all your friends and the rooms they're in order to be like, hey, like we know this person is friends with these people. They own a PS5. They own like various expensive pieces of hardware. Therefore, you should advertise to them, or even worse, you should rob them.
Exactly. And think about the accessibility. You mentioned the height. If you have the height information, you can easily tell who is using a wheelchair, who would be, and you can put people in vulnerable situations. So yes, we have a few seconds, I think. Thank you so much for coming. This was so much fun, and you have to come back.
I'm always happy to come back. Especially, I'm in San Francisco, and I'm always love coming back to San Francisco. So
and follow Ada. Look at her library, and I will be your host for Web Wednesday every Wednesday. The time will change, unfortunately, but I'll see you soon. Hope to see you all soon. Cool. And keep the questions coming, please. We have 5, 4.
I want to say something like